What's up, guys? Jason up New Age Revolution down here in the cave for another top 5 video. This one suggested by a few people recently, and of course it's right in the wheelhouse of the channel. You'll find out the topic in a minute, but it's been suggested before, and I thought about it before, but when I was going to do it before, I thought this is way too deep, and it'll make sense in a minute, but it's way too deep. And how can we possibly do 5 when our choices are so much? What am I talking about? I'm talking about the top 5 LJN WWF Wrestling Superstars figures that were never made or should have been made. So you can understand. See, the line went from like 84, 85 to 89, right? So that's like 5 good years of figures. How could I possibly pick 5 out of all those years? Well, so what I've decided to do is introduce a little top 5 mini series here. That's right, a top 5 LJN figures that were never made from each year of the company's existence. That's right, that's going to make it a little easier. And I'm going to start off in 1984, right? We're going to pretend that the LJN line, they started to sniff around the LJN line in late 83, we're going to say. And we're going to say these figures were probably going to come out around summer of 1984. So with that, with the production time and making the figures, we're going to get some figures from late 83 and early 84. So here we go with the top 5 figures. The top 5 LJN figures they should have made starting in 1984. Of course, we have to go with the champions. All right, and we've already got a Don Morocco, and we've already got a Tito Santana. So we absolutely, of course, we have a Hulk Hogan, but we're talking about late 83, early 84 by the time these guys hit shelves, summer 84. So I'm talking about the number 1 figure, or one of the figures, no particular order. A figure that should have been made in 1984 is former 6-year title holder Bob Backlund, ladies and gentlemen. Bob Backlund should have been made in 1984. He was still on television in April and May of 84 before he fades out and goes to like the Pro Wrestling USA, AWA, NWA combo short-lived federation. I guess we'll never really know what the deal with the WWF and Bob Backlund was. How they kind of, I assume it, Bob Backlund was a Vince McMahon Sr. guy, and when Vince McMahon Jr. took over, what we've learned about Vince McMahon Jr. over the years is that he likes a particular look, and Bob Backlund is not that look. So I think when Sr. faded out and Jr. faded in, Bob Backlund was no longer a commodity. Because, they gave the guy the whole company for 6 years. I mean, he was a champion from late 70s to 83. So obviously, he meant something to them. And it's kind of the strangest, thanks for your service, have a good one kind of thing. I mean, after he lost the title in a horrible, horrible way to the Iron Sheik, he was gone and then helped usher in Hogan. So it's like he was training his replacement. He helped Hogan reintroduce to the WWF, and then had a few rematches with the Iron Sheik. And there was one odd thing on TV in April '84 where he brings in a couple of kids, and they have an amateur wrestling match in the middle of the ring, like Bob Backlund's amateur wrestling camp or something like that. And he has them wrestle. And then he has a few matches on TV and a few matches at house shows. Nothing spectacular. I think one of the last things he did was a was a face versus face. I think it was either Salvatore Bellomo against Bob Backlund or Brian Blair against Bob Backlund. I think it was Bellomo at a house show. And so I don't know what they were doing. I don't know if they were testing out a heel run for Backlund, or if they were just like, look, you got to go now. It's over. No, I'm not going to change the game out, bud. You picked Pro-Am. You picked RC Pro-Am.
I always do World Rush Jet Modifier Racing.
That's on the Sega. I gotta like, let me do one more of these and then I'll do your Sega.
Okay.
All right. So Bob Backlund should have been made. The second figure that I think should have been made. This guy came in late 83, early 84, probably more so early 84. One of the first challengers for Hogan's title. Definitely a bad guy, like a super major heel, and got a lot of TV time being managed by Roddy Piper. But then, unfortunately, quickly faded out of didn't fade out. He was gone after he, annihilated John Stossel on 2020. But Dr. D. David Schultz, I believe, should have had a figure in 1984. One of the most believable heels. I was going to do a video on the top 5 wrestlers that actually scared me as a kid. And I think David Schultz scared me as a kid because he just seemed so mean. Like really mean. Like David Schultz is a mean guy. And I've watched some shoot interviews with him recently. And he's the same mean guy, I think. I don't know. Does anybody know David Schultz? Is he a nice guy? Does he have puppies and kitties and, eats ice cream with his grandchildren? I don't know. He seems kind of rough. But he should have been a figure. That would have been a great figure in 1984. I could see him with the one arm up and the black singlet. Great figure, I think that would have been. All right, the next figure I think that should have been made were the WWF Tag Team Champions at the time, Rocky Johnson and Tony Atlas. They were all over the place, in early '84 WWF. I think they made a big deal about, the first black tag team champions, and, they were Rocky Johnson prior to the tag team was being pushed as a very possible Intercontinental champion in his matches against Don Morocco. And then they put him with Tony Atlas, who was kind of floundering and not really, figuring out what he was going to be or what role he was going to play. And they put him with Rocky Johnson, and they defeat the Wild Samoans for the tag team titles. And they hold it for a good part of 1984, eventually losing it to Dick Murdoch and Adrian Adonis. But that was necessary. We needed Rocky Johnson and Tony Atlas in early '84 for figures. That would have been a good tag team 2-pack. Continuing that theme, I think the Wild Samoans would have made incredible LJN figures. Give me 5 minutes, babe, and I'll do it. They would have been incredible LJN figures because of their look, right? There's some customs out there. My friend Upstate Johnny showed me his customs, which kind of triggered this video. But there are some really good Samoan customs out there, and one of them that I see all the time, Afa is made out of the Junkyard Dog, and with a lot of painting and sculpting, obviously. But the Wild Samoans with their big bushy hair and their wild look would have made fantastic figures. I can almost see like the Tony Atlas figure having like the Paul Orndorff body, and Rocky Johnson, maybe even, I don't know, Rocky Johnson, I don't know. Who knows? I don't know. You need a thinner, muscular body. But the Samoans were just like big, bulky characters, almost like, like the Adrian Adonis body, lose the hands. But maybe Sika could have been, that kind of body. But anyway, I don't love customs. There are some customizers out there who are absolute pros. A guy named Joe Gatter is, like, you kind of look at his stuff and you wonder if he's just got, a stash of never produced LJN prototypes in his basement, and he just paints them up because they're so good. They're so good. And then there are some that are horrendous, just bad. But the Samoans, anyway. The Samoans would have been great. So that's four. That's four, because tag teams will count as one. So the final guy that I think should have been made in 1984, if I were to pick my top five, Iron Mike Sharp. Yeah, that's right. You guys are probably surprised by that. Why are you going to go with Iron Mike Sharp? Well, because he was a great bad guy who was always on TV, and he had a look to him. Even though it was just black trunks and black boots, he had the leather armband. He had kind of the bushy hair, the wild face, just like that, just like the one I did. I think he would have been a great figure. I think that would have, kind of like in the vein of S.T. Jones and Corporal Kirshner and, Outback Jack. I think we could, solid Iron Mike Sharp. And at the end of 83, mid-83, WWF couldn't quite figure out what they wanted to do with Iron Mike Sharp. Like, they gave him a manager. He challenged Backlund for the title at MSG. And then by, mid-84, he could beat some jobbers, but for the most part, he was losing a lot. And he stuck around for a while, and, he did his time with the WWF. But I think Iron Mike Sharp would have made a great Series 1 figure, 1984. So that's it. That's my top 5 LJN figures that were never made in 1984. Next time we're going to come back, and you can probably figure this out, we're going to do the top 5 figures that were never made in 1985, and we're going to continue the line right to 1989, and maybe I'll throw in 1990 just for, just to kind of mix things up a little bit. So that's that, ladies and gentlemen, top 5. Who do we say? Bob Backlund, Dr. D, David Schultz, the World Tag Team Champions at the time, Rocky Johnson and Tony Atlas, the Wild Samoans with their awesome look, and Iron Mike Sharp to round it out. Top 5 right there. We will see you next time. Good night now.